What was the dumbest rule your school enforced? Conservative Christian college. A group of us played Age of Empires one weekend. They didn't like it and called a meeting. Everyone involved got misdemeanors on their records. There was nothing in the handbook about it being against the rules. The only person that didn't get any punishment was the son of the president, even though he was just as involved as the rest of us. Was quite interesting explaining the write-up on my record when I transferred. You got a misdemeanor for what? Edit. They made it a rule after the fact and did this several other times with things such as nail polish or radio control helicopters. School added thumbprint scanners at gates of school, which counted as registration. Needless to say, I would just walk to school, scan my thumb, and walk back home with them none the wiser. Was a great few months until they noticed. In my freshman year of high school, we had a terrible vandalism problem. The bathrooms would be broken in various ways almost constantly. In a stroke of pure genius, the staff decided that any bathroom that was vandalized would be closed for the week on first offense, the quarter for second, and permanently on the third offense. They took back the rule after closing every bathroom on day one. Locked bathroom doors in the period after lunch. You should have gone at lunch. Also banned duct tape accessories back when that was a trend. They said it was gang activity. Prom was a mandatory lockdown for the night in order to avoid students going to parties after prom. Prom was held at various house parties across town instead. We weren't allowed to play tag football at lunch, only frisbee. When I asked the principal what the difference was, he responded with a sarcastic tone, "A football is round and a frisbee is a flat disc." He left the school later that year, went to another school, and a few years later was brought up on charges for failing to report the abuse of a student by a teacher. No backpacks to class, but purses were allowed. Girls started carrying around purses big enough to be considered a backpack. Guys got pissed, started carrying purses too. My school banned backpacks at one point. To protest, boys just didn't bring anything with them to class and girl brought really big purses. You couldn't wear any kind of head items that were gang colors, red or blue. This included hair bands, scrunchies, beads in your hair, ribbons, anything. I got in trouble for wearing a blue hairband with white polka dots. We had to wear belts. Someone snitched that people weren't wearing belts under their sweaters, and they actually checked and a bunch of people got detentions. Stupid. My high school mascot was Daniel Boone holding a musket. A kid wore a Guns N' Roses shirt to school and was told he had to change shirts because of the pistols on the shirt. He pointed out the hypocrisy of the school mascot and they changed everything. The mascot was switched to holding a flagpole instead. Every instance of the mascot was changed from the multiple signs outside and around the school to the giant picture in the middle of our basketball stadium. Holden, you're a legend for this. No jackets. They think we may hide things like phones or bombs there. All the kids, 6th or 7th grade, started putting pink laces in their shoes. Don't know why, but the school officials banned colored laces, saying pink is a gang color. If you were involved in a fight, you got suspended. While it sounds reasonable, context didn't matter. I got suspended once not for throwing a single punch, kick, whatever. I got suspended because someone knocked the books out of my hand and when I reached down to grab them they punched me in the face. I got suspended for walking down the hallway and unprovoked getting punched in the face. F. Brandon Valley Middle School. They banned wristwatches. No one knows what the reason was. They decided everything bad happened in the last 5 minutes of lunch, so it got 5 minutes shorter each year. Any group more than 5 had to be up to no good, so no groups over 5. Edit. This was not some big city, public school for troubled kids. It was a tiny Catholic school in a tiny farming town. The worst offense, by a student, of the whole time I was there was some kid walking across the street to get a soda from a store. Can't wear too many matching shirts because you could be a gang. This was in regards to a kid with cancer wanting to make a bunch of shirts. My high school was in Bud F, Nebraska. You got in trouble if you wore just a Hanes white t-shirt after school because you were in your underwear. Involved in a fight, same punishment regardless of fault, and this led to more dangerous fights due to everyone just going for it. Saw people use chairs, cricket bats and anything just to hand. Getting expelled from the school was really hard as it was the last chance school in the area, and after that it was the special reform school. We were all given these ugly planners at the beginning of the school year, with a few pages at the back filled with hall passes. If you didn't have your planner, or if all your boxes were filled, you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. And no, you couldn't buy a new planner. Or borrow one from your friend. The only excuse you had was if you had a doctor's note, but no doctor is going to give a note for an upset stomach caused by the school lunch. In grade 8, we were banned from standing in circles at recess because of potential scandalous activity going on in the middle. We stood in squares instead. The $200 blazer was compulsory and we got detention every single day until we got it. My high school banned t-shirts that had the cover of Rush's album Signals, an album popular at the time, which features an image of a dog sniffing a fire hydrant. They considered it scatological because the dog was about to pee on it. This struck the entire student body as extremely stupid, and roughly half of the student body picked a day to wear the t-shirt. We won. A girl and a boy couldn't sit together. The school employed disciplinarians to roam around the school and monitor this activity. If found, you will get a reprimand. If found repeating the offense, you get sent to the principal office, and if continuing, then eventually escalated to the parents, etc. Shoes are to be worn as the manufacturer intended. I have no clue who is wearing their shoes incorrectly, or how, but this line, verbatim, was repeated to us over the morning announcements when there were perceived infractions at various points throughout the year. No fist bumps. Their reason for this is that kids might accidentally punch the other person in the face. Edit, the school I went to was in a pretty rough area, so there were a lot of incidents where kids ended up getting into fights. Middle school had banned salt and pepper from being used in the cafeteria, claimed it was too unhealthy. Still sold Mountain Dew in the vending machines. We couldn't wear winter clothing, jackets, hats, gloves, in class because they were gang symbols. This was a small farm town in Wisconsin. Besides obviously having no gangs, it was cold, even indoors, in the winter. But clearly wearing warm clothing is something only gangs do. Our school banned hugging because it was erotic. As you can imagine, the boys at school started giving each other very sensual high fives for the rest of the year. No touching the walls. They restored a building with historic value using, among other things, period-appropriate paints. They then opened the planned primary school there and proceeded to try to get children to respect the restoration work. So we had a few years of benches in the hallways being 10 centimeters from the wall and children being reprimanded for leaning against the wall before the faculty gave up. Suspension as a punishment for skipping school. Don't want to come to school? Well, now you can't, until next week. Edit, and no tank tops in a desert climate. Because shoulders are too sexy for school. Attended all-girls high school. You had to bring a male date to dances or not attend at all. No going solo or with your girlfriends. So backwards. They banned hats because hats can be used to signify gang colors. The only major crime group in our area was the Hells Angels, and they certainly weren't having people wear hats for children to signify their allegiance. It was so bad a few years after I graduated I came back to volunteer as a chaperone for a school trip as a favor for my favorite teacher. The principal saw me wearing a beanie from across school. He literally sprinted half a mile to chase me down and tell me to take off the hat. When I told him I wasn't a student and didn't follow the dress code, he said either take off the hat, leave, or he'd call the cops. It wasn't the actual day of the trip, just had to show up to get the itinerary and stuff, so I just said, F you, I'm out. Idiots. I'm a cheerleader, and for School Spirit Week I wore the uniform they gave me. I got dress coded. My high school had half the bathrooms closed off at all times because they feared the students would smoke. No backpacks in the halls. Oh yeah, because carrying all of our books between classes was a great idea. Plus hardly any time between classes to exchange books meant carrying multiple classes things at once. Edit, looks like this is the norm for quite a few people in school districts. Doesn't make the rule any less stupid. But to be fair, it depends on your school. My middle school was 8 or so classes a day with 3 minutes between classes in a large school where classes could be far away from your locker. My high school was 4 classes in a much smaller building, but my friend's high school was similar to my middle school situation.